wanted to take a moment and just say thank you to everyone who took even a few minutes to listen to this labor of love. Charmed Conversations was an idea that I had at the beginning of the year, trying to bring voices of others in the community to those who might not know what a fun and wonderful place it can be. I hope that each of you found something new or felt a little confirmation of something inside. To all my guests who let me attempt to interview them, thank you. Thanks for trusting me to do something fun, and hopefully you enjoyed yourselves. My next guest is the wonderful Zany Danger, a well-known hypnotist, educator, and friend of the community. They'll be displaying their talents with rope at the Charmed PreCon tomorrow, so here they are, Zany Danger. So, welcome back to Charmed Conversations, and we are talking with the wonderful Zany Danger today. Zany, why don't you take a moment, introduce yourself, and what pronouns do you prefer to use?
I am Zany Danger. I use they, them, or starting to switch into they, him pronouns, but I would prefer not for people to use she pronouns for me.
I think that's absolutely understood.
Yep. And do you want to know a little bit more about me?
Absolutely. One of the questions we always start off with is, what do you consider to be your resume to be as far as a member of the hypnosis community?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I have been in the BDSM scene for multiple decades. And about the last, I want to say 8 or 9 years, I've been more focused, not just in the BDSM and scene, but also on hypnosis. And so I've been very blessed to have trained with the great Mark Wiseman, wise guy, as many people know. And I've just taught a whole bunch of classes over the time being in the hypnosis scene. So really, really excited to get to talk to you today.
That's awesome. Also, as a little birdie has told me, you are going to be doing an event for the pre-con on Thursday?
Yes, I am. I am doing an event. So it's going to be the Rope Lounge at Charmed. And so I'm going to be teaching kind of a brief 101 on, both just basic rope ties, but also how to do some rope over the internet. And then we're going to kind of break and do some playtime stuff. So it should be a lot of fun.
That sounds exciting.
Should be a good block of time. So
yeah, because it's
etc.
We've got, what is it, a 4-hour block that it's set up for?
3 or 4.
Yeah, whatever you guys find exciting, and then you'll just end on a high note, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll probably do some sort of main room and maybe some breakout rooms. I'm not sure how it'll work, but all that tech mumbo jumbo, just need to figure it out.
Right, but it will be exciting and enticing nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you talked about how long you've been in the hypnosis community. What got you interested in hypnosis in the first place? Was it tied to your BDSM, or was it just something you've always had?
So I had a partner that was very interested in going to a class in New York City. I believe Mr. Dream was teaching a class on, I forget what the actual class was on. It might have been on NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. And I went and I was listening to all the things that he was saying and realized that I had been using hypnotic language quite a lot in a fair amount of my interactions with people in terms of, obviously consensually, but, sort of a classic conditioning style language. And so I had been doing it for a while, quite intuitively, but I think that anything that comes with intention is so much more powerful. So I was able to do it intentionally going forward. And so that was my opening into the hypnosis scene.
Wow. And thank you for clarifying NLP. Not everybody knows what that acronym is for. Right. So maybe for people who don't actually know NLP or neuro-linguistic programming, can you just give a small definition of it, or maybe kind of describe what it is?
So I am far from an expert on neuro-linguistic programming. I'm much more of into it with that, but it's a way of phrasing things in order to get someone to do things, a certain way that you prescribe to them. Um, it was originally a sales technique that a lot of business people learn today as natural language processing. Um, but Bandler and Grinder were the first people to start that up.
Cool. So, since you've had a couple turns around the block and a lot of opportunity for people to know, to get to know you and what you've done, what's something that you would give as far as a piece of advice for people who are just starting out in the hypnosis world?
Ooh, hmm. I would say do your best to get involved. I think volunteering is a really good way to meet a lot of people in a short amount of time. Um, I would say go in with as clean an expectation as you can, which is kind of a challenging thing to say because we all have fantasies, we all have these ideas
Hmm.
about how we want certain things to be, but go in like kind of just with the expectation of maybe making some friends and learning a little bit more. And I think that that's a really solid way to get involved. Also, make sure that you have certain safeties, make sure that you share with certain friends that you're like, hey, I'm going to talk to this person, or hey, I'm going to play with this person, so that if you feel comfortable enough to do that, if you can, um, that's always ideal. And, talking to people about other people in the scene is a really valuable way to get a sense about them and what they're about. Um,
No,
yeah.
that's fantastic advice.
I'm trying to think if there's
So,
anything else. Please and thank you are really useful tools in your arsenal.
what a surprise! You mean people like regular social niceties? Gasp. Soft gasp.
Gasp.
You mentioned volunteering.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
So oftentimes events, I know right now we're not kind of in the midst of an events, in-person events moratorium, but when that was happening, you could go to certain events like play nights or classes, and you could volunteer for the organizations, meaning you could work the desk where people get checked in. Um, with the online things, there's still volunteer opportunities, and um, you can help with tech, you can help set up people, you can teach, you can learn a lot of different ways to enhance the community from within. And by doing so, you end up meeting a lot of really amazing people. Usually.
That's great advice anywhere, but I can see that wholeheartedly. I know that a lot of the kink community dungeons around my area all have a lot of volunteers who do work for them and
Hmm.
help out wherever possible. It's great just to find out what kind of community they are, and usually it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, I started after the class that I went to. I started to really try to get involved in um, the Eulenspiel Society, which is one of the older BDSM organizations in this country, anyway. And so I was helping with their hypnokink track. So I was helping with that for a solid, God, 4 or 5 years, which was pretty useful to me in terms of getting to know who was involved, and we'd have a monthly class usually, where we'd have someone come in and teach something that we found interesting, um, and so that's still running, but I'm no longer in charge of that.
Their loss.
Ah, their loss, but they have really solid leadership right now. So
Good for them.
yeah.
So now that you've given some advice about starting out, is there a rumor or a misconception about hypnosis that you'd love to dispel? Something you hear going on in the community?
Mm, So there is a little bit of a misconception that um, you can't be made to do something that you don't want to do. And, um, you know, people do things all the time that they aren't really super for without hypnosis, be it being coerced into something or otherwise. So I think it's just really important to make your boundaries known and set up some safeties for yourself so that they don't get trampled on. Um, that said, you probably won't be, the Manchurian candidate. You won't be you made to go after someone, um, to that level. But it's still important to understand that people will try to get you to do things that you may not actually want to do. Um, and I think knowing your boundaries is really important in terms of that.
That conversational topic has come up a few times, so I
Yeah.
think that it is something that everybody agrees with.
hmm
I think the point that was made was you don't always think about some of these things, so you don't have a boundary or I guess a thought in place about it. Like if you've
hmm
never thought about handcuffs and whether or not you would like to feel what handcuffs are like, your brain probably doesn't have an idea about that. So
Exactly.
yeah,
It's good to think
Huh.
about some of that stuff ahead of time, but also to make it known to the person that you're working with what your limits are. You know, I switch and I recommend like subject based negotiations all the time because I think it's really valuable to have it be a really the equitable share in negotiation is something I think that's really important, and it's not topping from the bottom. It's expressing your wants and needs and also your boundaries, which are really important.
That's fair. Something that I think everybody has to know, which is what interests you? Where do you not want to go? Where do you want to go? I think that's important for anybody who's going to be messing around with each other's heads to know.
Exactly. Exactly. From both sides too. And then, a successful negotiation that doesn't result in play is, I guess I said that wrong. But, a negotiation that doesn't end in play is still successful. And I think
Yeah,
that's important to know.
solid point. It's always worth considering it to be practice.
hmm
So, since we've covered the topic of the fun stuff,
The fun stuff.
right? What's one of your favorite kinks to do with hypnosis, or I guess that's either involved with hypnosis? I know you mentioned the rope, which sounded kind of
hmm
interesting. What are the kinks you'd love to share with people?
Oh gosh. I started thinking about this a while, I want to say a number of years ago. And so one of my original fantasies was, the whole Star Wars Darth Vader force
Mm,
play stuff. And so I developed this class all about hypnotic breath play. And so a lot of the stuff that I'm into revolves around control. A lot of the things that I like to explore involve like different sensation. I've noticed. Uh, so different types of you can play with temperature, you can play with hypnotic rope, you can play with different uh, breath, abilities. You can mess with someone's sense of time. I really enjoy the control aspects of this sort of play, if that makes any sense.
Oh, I think it makes more than a little bit of sense to most of us.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned the hypnotic breath play class. Ooh, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's some people who are excited and interested about that. Is that something that you ever teach anymore? Or is it something that people could harass you to find more about?
Oh, absolutely. People are always welcome to reach out to me and ask questions. I know that at one point, Wise Guy and the Secret Subject were doing a class called Use the Force, which I uh, helped with at least one of the times. And I'm happy to teach. Just reach out and I will tell you my rates, etc.
Which, for the record, anybody who reaches out, Zany is a wonderful individual, so welcoming, so warm. If you ever have a question, they are always happy to answer for you.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Well, you're welcome. We try to be nice to you.
Yeah.
So I know that you also do some content creation. I know you've got a lot of people who kind of follow you on Patreon, but
Hmm.
like, what's something that you find to be one of the most difficult aspects of being a content creator in the hypnosis community?
Oh dear. I think I think currently right now, I think staying motivated is a huge thing for a lot of us, and I know myself is included in that. And I think creating kind of like a schedule for yourself uh, would be really. I've been working on creating a schedule for myself in creating content. And I'm trying to make it work. And it's some people would say like the do or do not. There is no try, but I think right now it's really important to be a little kinder to ourselves, and just the act of getting up and sitting at a computer or writing things down, or even just thinking about something that really gets you excited, or um, recording something randomly because you just wanted to. I think being a little bit more open about the ways that you create content will cause it to come out. I also used to do something, and I still do occasionally for my Patreon people, is write a story in 20 or 30 minutes or less that has to do with mind control, and you just sort of write it out and then edit it, and then post it. And whether it's like sometimes you get some really amazing things. A lot of the times it's what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's more about sort of doing the thing, um, and getting a prompt and just kind of writing and not editing while you're writing. Just write, um, and that was something that I'm not sure if DJ Pinchin started, but I got it from him. So it was really valuable for me when I was first starting and first writing. So there's a hashtag, MC stories in 20 minutes or MC stories in 30 minutes that I recommend
I
checking out.
think I'll have to go looking at that because I think that sounds like an interesting thing.
Absolutely.
Ooh, poll for people to go. Ooh, which ones do they like? I'm sure they like all of them, but
Exactly. I may put up a poll soon on my Patreon to just get a sense of what people want for the story this month, because I do have a number of people that uh, subscribe to a tier where they can get a MC story a month, you know, and often they just don't send me prompts. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll come up with a few prompts and maybe I'll have the group vote on the prompt that they want written, um, because, might as well. Might as well keep that writing going.
putting things out into the universe is always a wonderful thing. I think it helps to encourage others to express themselves and express their desires. I think that's great. So I know that you... Oh, go ahead, finish.
Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was going to change the topic. If you have something else you want to add to this, please continue on.
Also, I run a podcast that's a little bit on hiatus at the moment, but it will come back soon. Called Fingering a Page podcast, where myself and other content creators read fan fiction and erotica. Usually, it's hypnotic adjacent erotica. And so I usually pick a creator and have their favorites and some of my favorites, and then read them on that podcast. So that should be coming out soon. fingeringapagepod.com.
And the title is just so catchy that I don't think anybody would scroll past
it. Well, it was hard. It was hard won, but I figured it out.
All right. So you've done both education as well as content creation. Do you feel that as, I guess, a visible presence or somebody who puts out content, that you kind of have an obligation to educate people, or is it something that you do just naturally? What do you feel the balance is between being somebody who gets to play in the community and like help furthering the next generation, I guess, or furthering their fellows?
Yeah. So if someone has something or says something that I think I do just naturally teach, but usually it's with consent. Like, hey, could I tell you something about the thing you just said? you know, um, but if someone says something that's inherently wrong, or I feel like it's wrong, I probably won't hesitate to correct them. Because I think it's really important that people understand, particularly with some of the hypnosis stuff, which is on like an edgier side of play, because you're messing with people's heads. I think it's important to make sure that you're doing things safely. In terms of what I feel I owed to the community, well, I do a fair amount of CNC play, which is consensual non-consent play, and I feel like my definition is a little different than other definitions. So, I like to teach on that because that's something that I do very regularly, and it's often something that I find that my submissives are more interested in than I am, if that makes any sense, because they don't always want to go into excruciating detail about all of their limits and boundaries. But occasionally I have to be like, no, 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 we need to talk about all of this so that when, we want to do something together, I don't have to guess. Like, I can just know from what we said previously that it will work out fine. And obviously, with at any point for any reason they can stop me, that implicitly put in and verbally stated. So I do think sometimes when there was more in-person conventions, there would be other people seeing some things happening, sort of like drive-by, just spontaneous trance happening. And that would look very dangerous to them, when in reality, that had already been pre-negotiated. So, the question as to what is acceptable and what isn't, is still very much kind of a gray area in that department.
You gave a small example of it, but for everybody who maybe hasn't heard about consensual non-consent, could you give kind of an example, like a little bit more, like, hey, here's where not that line is, because you already pointed out that it's a little bit gray, but
Yeah.
kind of give them an example of what it would be.
So, usually people don't do consensual non-consent with um, someone that they've just met. It's not really a so much a pickup play, sort of an arrangement. Um, I have a relationship with my pet of over 7 years, and uh, how it works is we discuss things. We go into sometimes excruciating detail, which he likes because he's a masochist, and I like because I'm a sadist. Um, about things that he enjoys and things that he'd like for me to do to him. And oftentimes he'll say something, "Oh, I want you to be really mean to me." Um, or "I want you to, make me cry," for example. Um, or "I just want to feel something," which is another way of saying, "I want to have a different sensation that I wasn't necessarily expecting." But because we know each other very well, and we know how we both play, there's a little bit more trust there to do things that, you know, would be acceptable, would be something that we'd want, and that we both enjoy and both want. I think for some people, um, there's a very exciting thing to not knowing exactly what to expect. Uh, so, you know, all of it involves a lot more communication, at least for me and the people that I play with. It involves a lot more communication at the start or periodically throughout the relationship, so that when we do play, it's, you can go different places. Um, I don't know if that answered your question, but.
No, I think it makes perfect sense. Just clarifying for some people who may not have heard the term or haven't really decided to look it up while listening to us talk.
Mhm.
Cover that section. All right. So, moving on from that, in the time that you've been in the community, what's one of the biggest changes that you've seen happen in the community? Like just change in culture, change in attitudes, in
Mm.
training?
I think people are paying a lot more attention to, uh, specifically touch, and I think that's an important thing. Touching, and actually, I guess our culture has become to be much more aware of consent and touch consent, as well as consent in general to do certain things. I think over the time that I've been in the community, um, there's been a lot more discussion around, you know, what is and isn't okay. And I think that's a absolutely positive thing.
I think that's a great point, especially because I don't think enough people take consent in everyday life, not seriously, but they don't look at it from that same perspective that you do whenever you're in the hypnosis community.
Yeah, they sort of take it for granted a little bit, if that makes
Hmm.
any sense. They
Absolutely,
don't
it
even
does.
think to go, "Hey, can I kiss you?" Or,
Yeah,
"Hey, can I touch your shoulders while I'm putting you into a trance?" Like that sort of thing.
absolutely. If more people paid attention to that, we might have a lot less frustration with some people. Who knows?
Mhm.
All right. So, with that being said, what's something you will always want to see more of in the hypnosis community?
Ooh.
Mm.
Oh gosh, I really like the experimentation thing that people do. Just taking something and, obviously with consent, trying it out, just seeing what happens. I think uh, there's so much variation, of what people do with hypnosis, and I'm always keen to see like what someone could come up with. Um, you know, uh, like I remember when I first started doing some of the force play stuff. Um, I was working with DJ Finchen, and we started messing around with different force abilities, like pushing someone and pulling someone, and just some of the more sexual, even sexual, uh, motions, etc. And just playing with stuff and seeing what works, what doesn't. And obviously things will work for some people and they won't work for other people, but I think finding like that experimentation, that like, ooh, I'm going to throw this at the hypnosis wall and see if it sticks, um I'm keen on that.
Folks, if you've never wondered if there were kinky Jedi out there, there's your answer. You know what happened. We're just replicating in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
So, with being an individual who's been to, I'm sure, many conventions over the time that you've been there, what's
Mm-hmm.
something that you, well, not just conventions, we'll talk about events and social space in general. What's something you would give somebody who is just starting out, advice-wise, when it comes down to making that first attempt at either joining the convention or a kink community event, something maybe particular to just hypnosis, but in general,
Oh, in
encouragement,
general.
advice?
Oh gosh, I would say if you live in a area, now we're in the age of the internet, you can probably look up and see if you have a local group that you can um, be a part of, either online or in person. Um, and I think that's a really solid way to start looking at things. If you live in an area where uh, there really isn't much of a organized scene, um, look at other places. Maybe a close metropolitan area nearby, um, or wherever. I mean, I know that you found your way
Mm.
from afar, far away. So, looking at local and national events and seeing, what interests you. I know that there used to be a site called Hip Nation. I'm not sure if that still is.
Mostly kind of defunct now, I think.
Yeah. But there's all sorts of ways. I know FetLife has a good way to look at your local groups and um, see what's good. I would say just approach it and do your best to be kind to yourself when you go to those events, or um, you can take your time and ask questions of the organizer and just be like, hey, I'm considering coming to this event. Do you have any advice? Is there any protocol that I should be following? Are there any rules that I should know about? If dress is an issue, then you could say like, what should I wear? That sort of thing. Just kind of doing some of the work ahead of time so that you don't have all that extra information rattling around in your head.
Also gives you a little bit more comfort for the fact that you know what to expect, what people will be wearing, like you said, or rules that they had to follow.
Absolutely.
Gives you a little more comfort.
Absolutely. Yes. And it will also create a certain rapport with the organizer. Like, don't go in saying, I want this, I want this, I want this. Go in saying, hey, I'm considering coming to your event. Are there any rules that I should be aware of so that I make sure I follow them? And that'll create a kind of relationship with that organizer, and they will know, hey, this person contacted me ahead of time to make sure that we had, if we had certain rules or regulations, in terms of people coming in. So I think that's a good way to approach it.
I think that's good advice. Make your way in with the head. That way you get to feel like you get the lowdown pretty quick,
Hmm.
hopefully. Um, as somebody who's been to a lot of little events, what's one of the favorite memories or things that you see happening at hypnosis conventions that you'd love to tell people about? Something to maybe to entice them a little for whenever we get back into a physical space opportunity.
Oh gosh. I mean, I feel like every time I go to one of these events, either hypnotic or otherwise, I feel like I level up. I feel like I learn something new. Even now with, I know I'm old and all that. Even now with all of my experience, like I do feel like I level up, and uh I feel like when I first started, when I was just starting, going to one of these events, there was a huge like capacity for, like just learning so much over the course of a weekend. Um,
Hmm.
so like I would recommend, checking out events. They are a lot. I will say that events can be a lot. They can be very emotionally taxing for people. So just make sure that you have like your stuffy or like an emotional support person that you can reach out to. Um, get outside, drink water, take a shower, do some good self-care things for yourself.
Self-care is important. I think a couple of people have also highlighted that it's okay to say, I need some time to process. I'm going to go back to my room for a little bit, or
Exactly.
to go outside, even though it might be freezing. Damn
That's true.
January.
Damn January.
That's great. So, any fun memories that you would feel disclosed to be able to share? Something that you have had
Yeah.
happen at a convention?
Let's see here. Gosh. I definitely have a lot of them. I just need to think about which one I want to share. um, sure, why not? So, I was teaching the hypnotic breath play class that, we spoke about previously, with DJ Pinchin and Sleeping Girl.
Hmm.
And Um, at one point, so he was supposed to be the light side, I was supposed to be the dark side, and we were fighting over her. And that was
Oh dear God, yes,
the
please.
idea behind it. And so at first we were fighting over her and sort of squabbling with each other and pushing each other against walls by our neck, etc., etc. And then we decided to just go after her at the same time,
Oh,
and uh, ended up I think I ended up pushing her against the beam in the room that was in between the aisles of of onlookers, and I'm pretty sure that Pigeon was doing something else that made them squirm quite a lot. Um, and I think one of the things we did was, the closer my hand was to their neck, the better it would feel. And we sort of left that a little bit vague so that when their neck actually was in my hand, it just was sort of explosive, which was lovely to see. And I think at one point we had them on the ground crawling so that they would be able to get to my hand, or so they would be able to get to DJ's hand. So it was pretty spontaneous. I think we had talked a lot about what we were going to do in the class, but all of that just sort of happened in a lovely mixture of delight.
I'm fanning myself over here. That sounds amazing.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And I had a number of people say like, "Oh, that was really great." And I was so focused on what was happening, with
Hmm.
my scene partners, that I was like, "Oh, you were there? Okay, cool."
Yeah, the
I
memory
think that,
got
that
very
I think I
focused.
think that's fair and all right to share.
Yeah, I think
Make
that's
sure
awesome.
make sure you clear it with your people. That's another thing I
Yes.
would recommend.
Hey, have two hypnotists fighting over you? There's a drink for some people.
Yeah. And Sleeping Girl
Hmm.
has amazing reactions, so just putting
Yeah,
that out there.
no joke. I the fractionation clash, or the grass and fractionation class at EHU last year. Oh God, her face. Or their
Hmm.
face, yeah. Wow. She was,
Beyond anything else, Sleeping Girl is an amazing hypnotist as well. So I would recommend anything Sleeping Girl has to offer.
yes, if nobody has heard of it, Sleeping Girl also wrote the Brainwashing book, which is a very fun read.
Yes, and is continually writing amazing things on their Patreon and has a podcast.
Yes. So one thing I've always wanted to ask you is
You've
you
always
seem
wanted to
to,
ask me this? Always?
yes. Well, but after I knew you, so
Okay.
I mean, this is not a question that was lingering in my subconscious before we even met.
Okay,
Saying,
good.
um, that would be just weird. How far back did you touch? So your name pops up quite a lot in a lot of different spaces. I know that whenever I've gone to some other people's works and all that, I've seen you pop up as a collaborator in a lot of spaces. It sounds like you are somebody who really enjoys not only putting content out there, but working with other individuals.
No,
Is that
absolutely.
something you enjoy doing often? Something that we should always expect you to do, or
I really, I find working with someone else is really, I don't know, it can create something really fabulous because I have things to offer and I know that other people have things to contribute. And I don't know, I guess I really just enjoy the connection and facilitating that. I
Mhm.
think it's something, and I don't really talk myself up that often, but I think it's something that I do particularly well. Uh,
Mhm.
and so, I uh, really enjoy collaboration.
I think the one I would share that I remember you stepping into was on Lee Allure's Discord server, and you both worked together in tandem. Now that was you
Oh,
guys
that
didn't
was
really
so
write up
fun.
a script. You didn't write up a script for both sides, right? That was mostly spontaneous.
It was mostly spontaneous. We had discussed the concept ahead of time,
Hmm.
um, which was maybe 15 minutes.
Hmm.
But Lee and I have worked together before, and we have similar enough patterns so that I really enjoy working with Lee, um, and feeding off of Lee's energy and words and stuff. I've definitely learned a lot from Lee over the years as well.
I think after you two did that, I was going through some of Lee's work on her site and saw that your name had popped up in a few other little places, which is what got me wondering the question for a long time. So
Mm, it's a good question.
apparently, working in collaboration with others benefits both sides. Who knew?
Who knew?
Well, so I'm pretty much out of questions for you, but is there anything that you'd like to share with the community? Anybody who's listening, whether they be new, old, somebody who's been around for forever?
Oh gosh.
Not putting you on the spot at all, right?
No, no. Let me think. I think that this is a very challenging time in at least in general, I would say, for people. Um, and what I would say is, I think being aware of your own, I guess, spoons. I don't know if you've heard of spoon theory,
Mm-hmm.
but
Oh,
being
yes.
aware of your like own energy and what you have to give, and being willing to say, hey, I need a little time, or hey, can we pick another day to talk. Being aware of where you're at and just kind of like, you know particularly since everything is online right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would say just being aware of what your level of matches or spoons or energy is, and just kind of being able to communicate that to people, I think is really important. And beyond anything else, I think like sharing what makes you excited, sharing what makes you passionate with people, having like a conversation about art or music or, anything that's not necessarily related to kink. Um, you'll be able to pick apart that conversation together and create something that could be really quite interesting. So I would say, like, think about a negotiation less as like a checklist and more, because those can be useful sometimes when you don't know what to say, but
Hmm.
and more as like getting to know someone so that you can play with them to the maximum benefit of both of you. um, just get to know the person, learn a bit about what they like, how they like to be touched, how they like to touch, and just kind of figuring out and calibrating with that person, where you both are at. um, I guess it's a little easier said than done, but maybe I'll teach a class on it at some point in the future.
I think everybody would like to see that, but it's great advice. I think that also, like you said, taking the negotiation and turning it less into a checklist and more into getting to know the other person, to getting to know what turns them on, what makes them happy, what makes them sad, what gets them excited. That's
Excite
a fantastic way to look at things because we all can learn a little bit more about each other.
Yep. And right now where everything is so tech driven, I think it's important to have real conversations with people.
The worst that they could ever say is no. And I also think that
Exactly.
one thing that people always forget is that in a kink community, you'd be surprised about what is embarrassing and what it actually isn't, because what may be embarrassing to you may be somebody else's kink, or maybe being embarrassed is your kink. So don't hold back.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe being embarrassed is someone's kink.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today, Zany. I really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
having me.
Yeah, and I know I will be seeing everybody at the Charm Convention this upcoming weekend, and I look forward to seeing your rope
I'm
experience, because
so
I think that would be
excited.
awesome.
It's going to be kind of like a rope party, rope jam. So, if you can, bring some rope. And if you can't, then, find your imaginary rope.
If you guys haven't gone to Home Depot, they've got a wonderful selection there. If you don't feel like going outdoors, string works just as well, because all in your mind is just as strong.
And I laugh, but you can use non-visible rope.
Yep. The
I'm
power of
also
the human
teaching a
mind.
class later on the weekend on intelligence play for everyone. So,
Oh,
with my
yes.
partner Eddie Ackerman, and that should be delightful, and a lot of interesting and fun examples of how to mess with someone's intelligence.
I probably shouldn't have moaned that loud, but I'm really
you
glad to hear that
probably
that class
you
is.
probably shouldn't have, but it was useful to me.
And that's what I do. I'm useful to people.
Well,
Well, you have a great time, and I will see you at the convention this weekend.
I'll see you at the convention. Thanks.